Welcome back! I am familiar with Warhammer lore and very new to playing 40k and very new to painting. Badly. But in this corner of the internet I share my honest opinions and experiences as both a new player in this hobby and a bad painter. So stick around in case you were blinded by my comedic charm and missed it. This video is all about why I chose Blood Angels for my first Warhammer family. So who are these red powerhouses? Powerhouses? Let's go with powerhouses. They're a famous group of space marines, think genetically enhanced space warrior vampires in cool armour, but not seductive vampires like Brad Pitt in Interview with a Vampire. Sorry to disappoint you, but they are brave, noble, and slightly cursed. They sometimes lose it on the battlefield and they go into this bloodthirsty rage. And on top of that, their models, I think anyway, are some of the most beautiful and detailed that I've seen. If you're new, like me, please don't worry. In this video, I'm going to cover some very easy, beginner-friendly tips on how to start playing Blood Angels and building your very first army from a beginner's perspective. And I mean that as a beginner today, not 27 years ago. If you're after 27 years in the game, you're in the wrong place. But I do have loads of very friendly and helpful people in my community over here on YouTube. So if that's you, then please say hi in the comments to anyone new so they can find you and come for your brain. Anyway, let's figure it out together. Just one red painted helmet at a time. So if we dig deeper, that's a bit cringy, but anyway, let's go with it. Let's dig. Digging up that hole. What is that? Stanley Yelnats. I digress. If we dig deeper into who the Blood Angels actually are, I'm going to explain all of the fancy Warhammer jargon as we go. I had to Google half of the stuff when I started, so you are not alone. But hey, I am your new Google. Way back in the ancient days of Warhammer history, like really ancient, think Space Age Roman Empire, the Blood Angels were known as the Fourth Legion. This means that they were one of the original 20 groups of super soldiers created by the big boss of humanity, the Emperor of Mankind. Yes, that really is his title. Subtlety is not a thing in 40k. Each of these legions were led by a Primarch, which is basically super-powered, genetically perfect space warlord. And with the Blood Angels case, flowing hair and deep emotional trauma, the Blood Angels Primarch was Sanguinius. He's kind of a big deal. He had angel wings. He was ridiculously noble and heroic. And spoiler alert, he met a very tragic end. Later on in this video, we are going to talk about him in a little bit more detail and his heartbreaking fate. The Blood Angels, they are famous for being both incredibly noble and terrifying in battle. Off the battlefield, they're into like art, poetry, bit of sculpting, like space marines who host wine and cheese nights, like those classy friends that you have who you don't mind going to their house for dinner parties and then you talk about them on the drive home. But once they hit the battlefield, it's a total switch up. They charge in like these red armoured wrecking balls with swords and fists and an overwhelming desire to mess up the bad guys and sometimes even their own guys. Yeah, this is where things get a little bit weird. You see, the Blood Angels, they have this genetic curse. Of course they do. It gives them two main problems, which I'll explain in a minute. But why do they have this curse? When the Emperor of Mankind, the big golden space dad of humanity, he created the Primarchs. He used all kinds of this crazy science, psychic powers, maybe some questionable magic, but things didn't go smoothly. There was a massive warp storm, which is basically like a interdimensional disaster. And the baby Primarchs, they got scattered across the galaxy. Sanguinius, the Blood Angels Primarch, he landed on a super harsh planet called Baal, and he grew up there before being reunited with Space Dad, Big E. But when the Emperor found him, he took Sanguinius's genetic material, which is called the gene seed, and he used it to create the Blood Angels. But here's the catch. Sanguinius, he had a flaw in his genes, probably linked to his psychic powers and the trauma of his fate, but that flaw, it got passed down to every single Blood Angel through their gene seed. That's why they all suffer from the curse I mentioned just now, called the Red Thirst, and they risk of falling into something else called the Black Rage. It's literally in their DNA. They were kind of doomed from the start. So in short, their curse, it comes from their super-powered angel dad's messed up space genes. Cool? Tragic. Yes and yes. So we'll start with Red Thirst. It's like a deep, unsettling craving for blood and violence, hence why at the beginning I said they're kind of like space vampires. It doesn't usually make them attack their own team, but it definitely makes them fight harder and scarier. But the Black Rage, this one is like a full-on tragic madness. When a Blood Angel falls to the Black Rage, usually mid-battle, they lose touch with reality and they think they're Sanguinius himself, reliving his final moments, which I'll touch on later in this video. And in that confused rage, they often can't tell friend from foe, which is not ideal when you're swinging a chainsaw the size of a motorcycle. There's no cure for the Black Rage. Once a Blood Angel falls into it, they're given a choice. Be locked away in the Tower of the Lost, which is basically space jail for the broken-hearted, or join the Death Company. Now, the Death Company is a group of warriors who've given up hope of recovery, and instead they just go looking for glorious, meaningful end in battle. They wear black armour, they scream a lot. They are basically walking metal tragedies and require loads of irritating edge highlighting if you're painting them, and a lot of patience. It's dark stuff. It's kind of what makes the Blood Angels so cool. They're not just shiny heroes, they're tragic, they're poetic, they're a little bit broken. Really? And they still choose to fight for something bigger than themselves. If we look at this dramatic lore and how it translates into like actual gameplay from a beginner's perspective, I'll keep it simple, no ancient like weird Latin phrases to learn. So why choose the Blood Angels? If you're the kind of person who wants your army to look great, hit like a truck, and then somehow be deeply tragic and poetic, then congratulations, you're Blood Angel material. They're like the connoisseurs, Space Marines. The fancy ones, the ones who drink blood from chalices, quote sad poetry, and then punch demons in the face and use flaming swords. They've got all the core strength of regular Space Marines, called Adeptus Astartes, which is like fancy Latin for super soldiers in power armour, plus their own special twist. They are elegant, they're aggressive, vampire-adjacent fury. Basically, if you want to tear your enemies apart while looking like gothic action movie poster, if you want to be a turbocharged space vampire knight with emotional issues, Blood Angels might be your jam. Someone compared them once to Sleep Token in space, and before, I wasn't mad about it, but after their new album, I'm not so sure now. Anyway, what are the strengths of Blood Angels? If we break it down in terms of what makes them great, tactical flexibility. Like all Space Marines, they're a toolbox army. You've got options for shooting, melee, mobility, you name it. They are amazing in close combat. Blood Angels, they excel when they're up close and personal. Chainswords, power fists, glowing golden spears. You've got some of the hardest hitting melee units in the game. If, like me, you love tanking, it's a lot of fun. Massive space unit selection, because they're technically still part of the bigger Space Marine family. You get access to the huge range of Space Marine units, plus some spicy Blood Angels exclusive. It's like getting the deluxe meal deal with all the extras, like when you go to Mackey's and then you get like a large Big Mac meal, and then you also get a cheeseburger and those tiny cheese bites and a McFlurry, and you bang, and it all appears on the tray, and you're like, oh, this is the life. Zero shame. Weaknesses, though, of the Blood Angels, because I'm not a total biased arsehole. Nobody is perfect, not even these boys. Tiny, sad violin moment, but let's be honest. There's not that many models. They're quite elite. I've found that the Blood Angels, they tend to run with fewer units on the table. So if you like having a huge swarm of little guys, probably not the best fit for you. In terms of like, if I phrase it like they can lack focus, with so many unit options and a dramatic playstyle, I've found it's easy to kind of get distracted and then build an army that looks cool, but then it doesn't work very well together on the tabletop. It's a bit like ordering one of everything from the menu and then realizing you forgot your cutlery. Christ, I am going down a food route today. Maybe I'm hungry. Is it lunchtime? Anyway, comment. What's your favorite takeaway? Because evidently I'm on a food hype, so let's keep that train rolling. Steaming? Steam rolling? Right, Blood Angels rules, 10th edition, as simple as I can. Here's where things start sounding like a sci-fi instruction manual. Sorry in advance, but I'm going to try and go through the rules briefly so you don't end up leaving me and I'll just be sat here like Pablo Escobar in his garden chair. We'll start with the Liberator Assault Group Detachment. Don't leave. This is the main way you build and play Blood Angels in the current edition. It's like picking a class in D&D. It leans hard into aggressive melee combat. The Red Thirst. This rule gives your units a big boost when they charge into combat. Think of it like battle adrenaline with fangs. You hit harder, you hit faster, much more brutally, even when you're the one running in first. Enhancements. These are like little power-ups that you can give your characters. One standout one I particularly like is Gift of Foresight. It reflects Sanguinius's I sometimes see the future superpower, and I appreciate I haven't touched on him properly yet. He deserves his whole a whole video entirely dedicated to him, but I will briefly explain him towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. Stay tuned, who do I think I am? But yeah, this enhancement, it gives you a nice little boost to keep your characters alive. Stratagems, they're like mini special moves that you can pull off during a game. One great one is Red Rampage. It lets a unit get extra spicy in melee, giving their weapons cool rules like lethal hits, which is like a better chance of punching through armor, or lance, hitting extra hard when charging in. Basically, rage mode activated. Think the Hulk on something illegal. Don't forget, you're still a Space Marine army, and this means you get access to Oath of Moment, which is probably one of the strongest core rules in the game. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. It lets you pick a target each turn. It makes your army better at hitting. It's very handy for when you really need something dead. Now, I appreciate, though, if you're new to playing, that might not make much sense. So the way I look at Oath of Moment, and remember, I'm very new to playing and still learning. So imagine you're a Space Marine commander, big armor, booming voice, dramatic music playing behind you. Every turn you get to point at an enemy unit on the battlefield and basically say, that one. That's the problem. Make it go away. That's Oath of Moment. At the start of your turn, pick one enemy unit and make an oath against it. And it kind of means that your whole army, it gets a special boost when they shoot at or fight that enemy. Specifically, your units get to re-roll all hit rolls and wound rolls against that target. So translation for beginners. Normally, when you roll dice to hit or hurt something, if you roll bad luck, suck it up, get on with it. But with Oath of Moment, you get a second chance to roll your dice if it goes badly. It's kind of like having a cosmic do-over button, and that is a pretty big deal in a dice game. So a moment ago I said it's one of the strongest core rules in the game, but why? It makes your army way more reliable. Fewer bad rolls equals more damage, which equals heavier Space Marines. It's simple to use. You don't need to spend points or tokens. Just pick a target each turn and go to Pound Town. Pound as in punching, not that kind of pounding. Get your mind out of the gutter. It works for both shooting and melee, so no matter how you're playing, it helps. I think Oath of Moment, it's kind of like when you play a video game like World of Warcraft or Diablo, and you all focus on taking out a big boss, an objective, and a dungeon, everyone piles on, and because you're all working together, it gets done faster and more efficiently. That's what the Space Marines are doing here. Coordinated, focused, and brutally efficient teamwork. The key Blood Angels units to know is kind of like, because they are basically poetic rage monsters in armor, we're going to look at who you'll actually be putting on the battlefield. There are lots of units to choose from, and if you're new, it can feel, like I mentioned earlier, like a sci-fi novel written in Latin. But we'll start with like the leaders. These are your fancy guys in charge. We'll start with Commander Dante. Now this guy is the boss. He's the chapter master, head honcho of the Blood Angels. He's been around so long, he probably remembers when plasma guns were still cool. Dante flies around in golden armor, he hits like a truck, and he makes everyone around him fight better. And he could also scare enemy units into panicking with his fancy golden death mask. Basically, think old, angry, still absolutely terrifying, like a vampire grandpa in charge of a jetpack army. You've then got your Chief Librarian, Chief Librarian Mephiston. Think if Dracula joined the X-Men and then also had a PhD in brain magic, he'd be Mephiston. This guy is a psycho, which is like a space wizard with serious attitude and an absolute beast in combat. He can melt mines, he can lift tanks, he has an epic backstory involving beating the Black Rage. He's a fan favourite and a great mix of brains and brawl. Astaroth, this guy's job is dramatic. He's basically the Blood Angels executioner priest. If you're cursed with the Black Rage, he's the one who decides whether you go into glorious battle or get a quiet moment with an axe. In-game, he makes your units fight harder, even if they've been knocked out. Plus, he comes with a giant axe and something called the Massive Doom. He's pretty cool. Your Sanguinary Priest. This guy is your space vampire medic. He heals people, he hands out cool buffs, he carries around a sacred chalice full of blood. Don't worry, it's the good kind of blood. So when your troops drink from it, they fight harder, they survive longer. Super helpful support character. Yes, the Blood Cup is canon. Think Shadowheart, but in Warhammer if she was a dude. The battle line. This is your backbone of your army. So you've got Intercessor, Assault, Intercessor squads. These are your bread and butter Space Marines. Tough, reliable, shockingly flexible. Your Intercessors equals like more shooty. Greater holding ground and blasting infantry. Assault intercessors equals more stabby, good at charging in and mixing it up. They're not flashy, but they get the job done. Think of them as the dependable core of your army, your frontline heroes in chunky armor. Other core units that you need to know about are your Sanguinary Guard. These are Blood Angels elite golden warriors, basically flying vampire knights in fancy armor. They were once the personal guard of Sanguinius himself, and they strut around like they own the place. They are incredible in melee, they look stunning on the table, and pair them with beautiful Commander Dante. If you want to feel fancy and deadly, definitely start here. Your Death Company Marines, these guys, they've fallen to the Black Rage, which means they think they're reliving Sanguinius' final battle, and they are angry about it. In game terms, they hit like a meteor. They don't care about personal safety. Their version comes, this version of them gives them guns too, so they can shoot, they can fight like maniacs. They've got a nice combination of like unhinged rage and firepower. Then you've got your Death Company Dreadnought. So what happens when a raging, doomed Blood Angel is too far gone, but you still really want to punch tanks? You put him in a Dreadnought, basically a walking metal sarcophagus with giant robot fists and flamethrowers. This thing is terrifying in close combat, and it has a rule called Driven by Fury, which perfectly describes how it plays. Angry, stompy, absolutely relentless. You've also got a Baal Predator. This is your go fast, think like murder tank. It's a special Blood Angels version of the Predator tank, but it's souped up with speed boosts and flame weapons. It is not subtle. It zooms forward and burns stuff, and that's it. If you like the idea of a race car with guns, the Baal Predator is like your new best friend. But just remember though, you don't need to start with all of these at once. Pick one or two characters you like the look of, grab a squad or two of intercessors, maybe one wildcard unit like the Death Company or the Sanguinary Guard. Build up slowly, play casually, have fun. Because at the end of the day, it's not about winning tournaments immediately. It's about telling cool stories with your plastic vampire bros in space armor. Bros, who do I think I am? Sanguinius. Like I said, he deserves an entire video. I'm going to surmise him as best as I can in a beginner-friendly font in a short space of time, and it's going to look like this. Who is he? AKA Space Angel Dad of the Blood Angels. Think of him like an angelic space hero meets tragic legend. If we look at the basics of his character, one of the 20 Primarchs created by the Emperor of Mankind to lead the Space Marines. He's special because he literally had these giant white angel wings. He looked amazing in gold armor, and he had visions of the future. He crash landed as a baby on a super dangerous radioactive planet called Baal, where he grew up like fighting monsters and just being a general badass. But why is he important? He was known for being incredibly kind, incredibly humble, and most importantly, inspiring. But he was also a total powerhouse in battle. Everyone loved him. Even his brothers, who are the other Primarchs, they looked up to him, and he did have a really special relationship with Horus before that all went to pot. Tragic ending. During the Horus Heresy, when half of the Emperor's sons rebelled and all hell broke loose, Sanguinius remained loyal to the Emperor. He even flew to Terra, which is Earth, to help defend humanity's last hope. At the final moment, Sanguinius faced off against Horus, the biggest traitor of them all, his former best friend, and he died trying to stop him. Sanguinius didn't win, but it's said that his sacrifice created the opening the Emperor needed to finally take Horus down. He died a hero, and that's why the Imperium, and especially the Blood Angels, they worship the feathers off this guy. That was cringe. Can't take it back now, I've said it. In a nutshell, Sanguinius, angel-winged space general, Blood Angels' dad and their gene source, psychic, noble, tragic, glorious, died saving the galaxy, basically the space version of like Aragon meets Dracula, and an actual angel. And when I say that's a super brief overview, it's a super brief overview, but it kind of gives you the key things. His legacy does still live on today through the Blood Angels. They still honor his sacrifice. Like we've talked about throughout this video, they suffer from his genetic flaws. Thanks, Dad. But they fight on. Noble to the end. Big wings, big heart, big tragedy. If we end this video though on a little bit of gameplay chat, I'll talk briefly about my experience of how Blood Angels actually work on the tabletop, and this is my experience. So in simple terms, I've found that they just kind of love getting in close and punching things in the face. If you're the type of person who sees a fight and thinks, I want to be in the middle of that, preferably with a chainsword, you're in the right place. The Blood Angels, they're an assault-orientated chapter. Orientated? Oriented. Oriented. Assault-oriented chapter. Which is like a fancy way of saying they don't like standing still and shooting things from across the board. They thrive in short-ranged firefights, and they're at their absolute best when they're just charging into the enemy and causing glorious chaos. How do you get there? You've got a few ways to make that happen depending on your personal playstyle. Fast assault troops, you've got your jump pack units like the Sanguinary Guard or assault intercessors. They are great for kind of leaping across the board, getting into the enemy's face early. Your transport vehicles, if you like riding in style, use your tanks like your Impulsor or your Ball Predator. They'll deliver your troops straight into the battle, kind of like Uber, but with heavy flamers. If you want to go big on your bodies, if you want to flood the board with lots of tough, angry Space Marines, you can do that too. Like, imagine like 80 wounds of red armoured fury charging straight at your opponent. No matter how you get there, the key idea is the same. Get close, stay close, hit hard. Sons of Anarchy are back. Wow, they must be just looping the block. I'm just going to mention a very quick note on stratagems because I mentioned them very briefly earlier. You need to think of them like your battle tricks in your back pocket. Used right, they can turn like a meh situation into a hell yeah situation. So for Blood Angels, some of these stratagems, they are crazy powerful, letting you hit harder, move faster, or just survive longer when you really need it. It's worth taking some time to learn what they do. I made this mistake. You don't need to memorize them all right away. Just start with one or two and build from there. Like I said, it was my biggest mistake. I kind of forgot all about them. I didn't learn them properly, and it did come back to bite me. So in summary, the Blood Angels, they like to fight close up, use speed, transports, lots of troops to get there. Don't forget your stratagems, they are your secret sauce. Secret sauce, I'm quite cringe today. But if you like your Space Marines, fast, furious, a little bit fancy, the Blood Angels are a blast to play. No pun intended. We're going down that cringe route now. I'm rolling with this. Just don't expect to hang back and chill. These guys, they're all about smashing stuff up and making things happen. If you're still sitting there thinking this all sounds like my kind of ridiculous, then welcome to the family. You've got a great taste in tragic, sword-wielding, rage-fueled space poetry, but remember, I am just a beginner figuring this out in real time. I'm gluing my fingers to models, I'm forgetting my stratagems, I'm turning red helmets into like accidental pink ones, but it's kind of fun. It's not about perfection, it's about picking up your cool little plastic wall dolls and then just learning the rules one misstep at a time and occasionally yelling, "For Sanguinius!" out of your window at your neighbour. Hi. If you're new to Warhammer, please just come and say hi in the comments. Whether you're struggling with painting eyes, forgetting what a data sheet is, mid-game, I'm laughing because I've just cut out a swear. Now I sound like a child. This is not going to plan. Let's wrap this up. Maybe you're panicking because your intercessor looks like he's been dipped in jam. You're not alone. Our community here is the best community of nerds on the internet, and you are in the absolute right place. If you've been into Warhammer, oh my god, I'm going to retire in a minute. If you've been into Warhammer longer than Mephiston's been brooding, just drop a helpful comment or two. Share your wisdom. Let the rest of us just bask in your knowledge like squishy, mortal neophytes beneath a Primarch's glorious golden glow. There you go. I've revived myself. Revived. Whew. Anyway, if you are still here, Christ, well done to you. You deserve a medal. Please do all those things you need to do only one time to please support my tiny channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.